Welcome to another HoloNet news episode from the Infernal Brotherhood of the Scruffy Looking Nerf Herders. My name is Adam, and today is December 16th, 2025, and today's Star Wars news discussion includes Fate of the Jedi, a new game that was recently announced, Star Wars Galactic Racer, another new game that was recently announced. We're going to be talking about a prequel comic series about the Darth Maul TV series, and then, of course, we're going to take a look at the Star Wars news feed. So, you excited to dive in? I am too. Let's get to it. All right, we're going to start with probably the most exciting of the news that's released in the past week. New Star Wars video game Fate of the Old Republic, set from Lucasfilm Mass Effect director. Now look, Fate of the Old Republic indicates it's the end of the Old Republic era, which is kind of exciting. The Old Republic lasted like tens of thousands of years. Dawn of the Jedi was, like 20 and 30,000 years BBY. So the Old Republic has a huge time span. It has it all mapped out in the EU canon. There's another massive multiplayer online role-playing game solely about the Old Republic era, and it did really, really well with players. And then there was, of course, the loved classic role-playing games, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, which were both incredibly well received by gamers, and they're just really great role-playing games with incredible stories, especially number 1, had an incredible story with an incredible twist in it. And so all of this is to say the Old Republic is established, and whether you're aware of it or not is less important, because now we're apparently going into the end. At least that's the inference with the title. I'm excited to get into it, so let's see here. A new Star Wars video game, Fate of the Old Republic, was announced Thursday during the 2025 Game Awards. Arcanaut Studios unveiled a teaser trailer of the video game live during this year's ceremony. According to an official description, Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic is a narrative-driven, single-player action role-playing game where you step into the role of a Force user on a journey through a galaxy on the edge of rebirth. Developed in collaboration with Lucasfilm Games, the project will be led by Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect's trilogy director, Casey Hudson. That's an incredible. So someone who's been working on some incredible IPs already. Good news. Who serves as game director at Arcanaut Studios. Working on Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was one of the defining experiences of my career, Hudson said in a statement. With Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic, we're telling a completely new and different story with everything we've learned since. Crafting an adventure about choice, destiny, and the timeless struggle between light and dark. It's a dream come true to once again collaborate with Lucasfilm Games. We look for partners who have the drive and the leadership to build something groundbreaking, and that's what we see in Casey, says Jay Ong, head of Disney Games Group. Under Casey's direction, Arcanaut Studios is assembling a team with a deep passion for... Assembling a team? So this isn't even in development? And they released a teaser for it? What? All right, that's a huge thing that I haven't seen anyone notice yet, or at least comment on yet. That changes everything. All right, with a deep passion for storytelling and building immense worlds, their vision for Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic is exactly the kind of ambitious, high-quality experience we want to deliver for our players. The Old Republic is rich and beloved part of Star Wars galaxy, and we're thrilled to be exploring a fresh story that we've never seen before in Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic, added Douglas Riley, VP and GM of Lucasfilm Games. Arcanaut Studios shares our enthusiasm for the galaxy far, far away, and their plan for this new narrative is inspiring. We believe fans will be delighted by the journey that awaits them, and we can't wait to share more. Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic is in early development for PCs and consoles. We already had that Star Wars Eclipse, which came out with the teaser, and then the studio broke apart, and then they said they didn't break apart, and then they said that they're still in development, but it's still a long ways out. So is this the exact same? Does Disney never learn? I don't understand why they announce a bunch of stuff before it's even ready. They're just like, oh, we have a great idea. Let's put together something for it and release it. And then it just shits the bed and goes away. Watch the first look. All right. Well, now I'm not excited because I didn't realize that. Let's check this out.
Right, now we move into one of my favorite and, yes, sometimes very dangerous parts of the evening. The moment where we look ahead at what's coming next.
Just get to it. Ooh, yeah. Looks really nice. Oh yeah, that's very Prometheus looking. Like a K2SO. It's probably a hunter-killer droid, an HK droid. And that's a Korin right there, this species. So I wonder if you're going to choose between light and dark and stuff in this, because she had red on one side of her face, and when she ignited the lightsaber, it was blue on the other, the typical Sith Jedi colors.
Boom!
So that did look good, but look, all it takes is some incredible 3D renders to put together a little piece like that. It has nothing to do with the game itself, because the game's still in early development. They're still assembling their team. So this is way out there, and I'm not even excited at all anymore. I was super stoked until I read that. Yeah, Star Wars Day. Hey, Chris, thanks for tuning in. Mass Effect series of games is your favorite of all time. Anything they make you're interested in. I've never actually played them, but I've heard they're so amazing. If you disappear from the planet in 2030, you haven't been kidnapped or run away and hiding in a basement apartment playing this game without stopping. Yeah, it looks like a really great game. And look, if it's ever put together, if it's ever released, I will 100% play it. But with it so early in development, I had no idea that it was still assembling a team. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's so far out. All right, so we may never see it. It may never actually happen. But if it does, are you excited about this era? Because I think this is an era ripe for storytelling. Fate of the Old Republic, again, indicates to me at least, it's the end of the Old Republic. And that's an era that I know very little to nothing about. What happened between the end of the Old Republic and the prequel Episode 1 Phantom Menace is all places where really only comics and, I mean, not even really comics, but novels have touched on with Darth Plagueis, but not a whole lot other than that I'm aware of. So I would love to get some really rich storytelling in that time space. The Mass Effect games were great about consequences and choices. You could be evil or good. You're guessing this would be similar? Yeah, I think it definitely would. And that's what I liked about the old Jedi Knight games, which is why I'm sort of revisiting them, is that you got to choose whether you were good or evil. And the outcome, the choices that you make, change the outcome of the actual game itself. And I really, really dig that type of storytelling. And that's been, Star Wars 101 from the beginning. So it's really nothing new, but it is something that is fun because all of us ultimately, we would end up being Sith. The vast majority of the human population would be Sith because we're self-interested, we're worried about ourselves over other people, we're concerned only with those that we care about here. Most of us are not like outgoing and, what's the word I'm looking for? Altruistic. Most of us don't think selflessly. And it's just a Western trait. And because of that, we would fall in the line of the Sith, just naturally because of our behaviors. It takes a disciplined approach to life and a selfless worldview for Jedi to exist and to naturally be a Jedi. And I know a lot of people would like to think that that's what they would do, but when shit hits the fan, I think you can just see in our country right now the way people act. We're all Sith, 100%. And I have no problem with that. But, whenever your choices are the guiding indicators of where you're going to land in a video game, we're clearly going to be Sith. The Revan reveal remains the greatest story twist in gaming history. I agree. It was awesome. It was so cool to have that in the game. It was such a fun game too. I mean, it was such a good, well-structured game with a bunch of little side quest things that you could do, like swoop bike racing or playing, if I'm remembering correctly, it was Sabacc, or it was a derivative of Sabacc. But I loved that. It was just so much fun back in the day playing it. And I actually bought it for my phone, but I've just never been able to get into it and play it. Too much stuff going on. Every time a game gives an exciting choice of being a bad guy, you still aren't being good and trying to save the princess. It's not that you're a great person. You just really want a princess to like me. Yeah. No, I'm with you. All right, so let me know. Do you think this is actually going to land? Is it going to happen? Are you excited about the era of play that it's set in? Do you know much about the Old Republic in general? Let me know in the comments. Let's get up to the next one. Now, this one is actually an article from StarWars.com. We're going to be double tapping StarWars.com in this episode. But this was an announcement that sort of slid underneath the radar that dropped at the same time because not as many people are into this style of game. But I will tell you this. When Star Wars Racer came out originally after A Phantom Menace, I played the shit out of that game. My wife and I both would play it online against each other. And it was such a fun racing game, just like a pod racing game set back in the day. And again, it harkened back to the earlier Knights of the Old Republic where you could do some swoop bike racing and stuff like that. But then it like indelibly tied you into Tatooine and the Phantom Menace storyline with just Anakin being a kid and an amazing pod racer. And so you got to sort of build and pimp out your pod racers and stuff and go out and do some really fun games. But it just sort of, there's a whole tradition of racing games with very similar tropes that every IP makes their own versions of. Probably the most popular would be the Nintendo racer game, with like Mario and stuff, Mario Racer and Mario Kart. And, justifiably, it was a very fun game and it had a lot of good mechanics and beloved characters and stuff. But as soon as Star Wars got into it and started doing theirs, I was like, are there any other racers out there? Let's be fair. Star Wars is always the best, in my opinion. So I'm excited to see a new version of a racer game, though it probably won't get the playability that most of these other games are going to get, especially compared to Fate of the Jedi. So we're going back to Jakku in the trailer for Star Wars Galactic Racer exclusive interview. An epic new Star Wars racing game was just announced at the 2025 Game Awards, and we have everything you need to know directly from Fuse and Lucasfilm Games. All right, so before we read the article, let's watch the trailer.
I want it back. The way it was before the Empire shut it down.
That's great.
Massive engines. Lightning fast. Lives on the line. The pilots were incredible. Best of the best.
Hell yeah.
United by one beautiful dream.
Hell yeah.
The galaxy needs racing.
Ships. Got swoops. Yes, please. I would like to play that, please. You got swoops, you got pod racers, you got land speeders, and then pimping them out? Hell yeah, that's going to be fun. All right, you can almost feel the Jakku sun beating down on your face as you round the bend, navigating between a downed Star Destroyer and what's left of an AT-AT in the Graveyard of Giants. The familiar location from Star Wars The Force Awakens, a popular haunt for scavengers like Rey in later years, has been transformed into an unsanctioned racetrack for the all-new game Star Wars Galactic Racer, just announced tonight at the 2025 Game Awards. Along with the reveal of an exciting first trailer, which you can watch below, Fuse Games co-founder Matt Webster and VP and GM of Lucasfilm Games, Douglas Riley, sat down with StarWars.com for a trailer breakdown, including a hint about the Sebulba Stinger and a closer look at the new characters' locations and vehicles to come. Racing DNA. Racing has been the DNA of Star Wars storytelling from the start. A favorite hobby and inspiration for creator George Lucas, the sport became a central part of Star Wars The Phantom Menace, which led to the creation of a fan-favorite classic game, Star Wars Episode I Racer. When a team of such amazing racing chops like Fuse produced a new expression of racing in a galaxy far, far away, it was a true no-brainer decision, Riley said. One of the greatest things about Star Wars is that it can be a perfect fit for many genres and audiences. We're always looking for new and creative ways to revisit genres fans have enjoyed in the past and find unique expressions in the future. Webster and other members of the gaming studio are no strangers to Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm Games has a long and successful relationship with many of the key leaders at Fuse Games from their time at Criterion, including their work on Star Wars Battlefront II, Starfighter Mode, Riley notes, in addition to the great work on our projects that have been industry leaders in some of the most beloved racing franchises in Need for Speed and Burnout. Played both of those. I can't think of any other studio better suited for bringing Star Wars Racer back to our fans. What's Star Wars Galactic Racer about? In the first trailer, we meet a new character named Shade, a lone racer with a dream of glory and revenge, Webster hints, coming down the ramp to join the paddock on Jakku. Look very closely, and you may even see a flock of steel peckers surveying the landscape. Players will learn more about Shade as they progress through the game's campaign. Your aim is to survive long enough to earn your shot and become an elite racing pilot, Webster says. Our racers are high-stakes competitions where racers do everything they can to get in the front in the solo campaign and our awesome multiplayer gameplay. It looks so good. Racing through the Star Destroyer graveyard on Jakku. A skim speeder shows its knife-edge capability on Androu Prime. The high-speed teaser shows racers on all types of land speeders and speeder bikes navigating locations like Jakku and Androu Prime. Of the latter, Webster notes, is the backdrop to the brand new skim speeder showing its unique handling properties as it cuts through the racing pack. This awesome image of a skim speeder highlights those different racing lines and handling characteristics in one shot. Skim speeders are vehicles that reward flowing lines and maintaining momentum, banking through corners and knifing edge through narrow gaps. We're really excited to bring this new creation to life, and we're looking forward to sharing more about this new vehicle and other gaming details on future updates. This latest Galactic Racer expression will stand apart from its predecessors and other games in the genre. We've drawn real inspiration from run-based games, so the player will have meaningful, consequential decisions to be making on how they choose their path to become an elite racing pilot. From the vehicle they choose to start with, the upgrade choices to make to create and build a build that really suits their play styles, and what events they select in determining their path to becoming champions of the league, Webster says. Along the way, you'll compete with rivals, journey to new planets, and master different classes of repulsor craft or speeders, each with their own distinct capabilities. Shade chases the leaders on Androu Prime. We have a range of racing repulsor craft for players to discover in the game, each of which has unique handling characteristics to master. Webster continues, speeder bikes, for example, are fast and ferocious. You'll be braking heavily into corners, really leaning in, and then massive drops of acceleration as you power your way through the exit. Also notice that in many of our events, our different speeder classes race at the same time with exciting physical interactions as those different racing lines come together. Sebulba, and Sentinel-1. Star Wars Galactic Racer is filled with new characters and locations like Sentinel-1, revealing in the trailer for the first time. It's the home to Skakoan listening station, built on a vast planetary scale with huge antennas littering the landscape, Webster reveals. It's also a toxic wasteland that's been plundered for minerals with bright yellow rivers of acid that crisscross the dark rocky terrain. These hazards inform unique racing tactics for players as toxic fumes will interfere with your engines. And beyond Jakku, the trailer promises to reunite friends with dastardly Doug, who tried to cheat his way in the Bunta Eve Classic title against Anakin Skywalker. Sebulba, there's so much love for Sebulba and the team and across the Star Wars community, Webster says. There are particular reasons why he finds his way into our trailer, as well as a detail in this shot that may lead to even more questions, the answer to which we'll have to leave to another time. Chesko Sebulba will be counting the days down the days until our next match with Star Wars Galactic Racer arrives. I mean, visually, it looks beautiful. I mean, come on. Yeah. Color me interested. I'm definitely into this. Again, after you do your initial playthrough of the story mode, and then you do a couple of the multiplayer, I'm not sure how much legs it'll have, but it still could be fun. And look, the Lego Star Wars Skywalker, they have racing and stuff in it, I believe, that you can do. And they have, the space stuff that you can do as well. So it's got a little bit of everything. If you really already have a game and you want to explore some racing options, it's already there. But you know what? This is visually a completely different beast, and it's got a story. So that's exciting. You'll be able to spot the bones of Jar Jar Binks on Jakku. I don't believe Jar Jar Binks is dead. I love the Aftermath novels where they left Jar Jar Binks, where he was basically a clown that's entertaining children, and he's finding a semblance of joy in it. And I like that because, he was the senator, he was a bumbling idiot, but ended up being a warrior. And I just, I like the idea that he's returned to a smaller life and he's enjoying that smaller life. Him being dead doesn't make me joyful at all. Like, it's kind of messed up. Anyway, I never minded the character. Other people freaked out about him, but I'm okay with it. Yeah. So did you guys like racing games? Did you ever play the first Pod Racer video game? It was on all the platforms back in the day, and it was a pretty big deal. Let me know in the comments. At least this one is actually already in development, is going to be released soon. So that's exciting. Next story. Star Wars officially announces prequel to Darth Maul's new TV show. Star Wars has officially announced a new prequel series to the upcoming Maul Shadow Lord series. I got to say this really quick. I have not had Disney Plus since Disney basically has backed this administration. And the reality is I don't like this administration, and it's causing me to just sort of boycott Disney. I want to see the Maul Shadow Lord series. I want to see the newest season of Visions, and I just haven't yet because I just will not give them my money. And that's frustrating for me because I want to see this stuff and I want to comment on this stuff. But just in my heart of hearts, I just cannot bring myself to do it. And we shouldn't have politics in Star Wars, even though Star Wars is a political machine. And we shouldn't have politics driving making films or whether or not we watch them. But quite frankly, I'm just sort of burned by them. And so I've been hyper-focusing on the EU content lately, which is expansive, and I'll never run out of that, at least not for years to come. So I'm not really worried about running out of content, but I would like to see this Maul Shadow Lord. So if it comes to the comics, I may actually read those because that's not Disney Plus, and I have to draw this imaginary line on where I'm comfortable, and it becomes problematic for me having a Star Wars YouTube channel where I am cutting off a big chunk of Star Wars content. You didn't enjoy Aftermath 2, but Force Awakens was 30 years later, and it's a long time away, so I had hard to imagine Jar Jar was still around by then. Yeah, he could be old Jar Jar. Crusty Jar Jar. Contrary to popular belief, Darth Maul's story didn't end when he was cut down by Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace. We already know that from the Clone Wars series that, is like, what, decade and a half old or so when he came into it. George Lucas himself realized the Sith apprentice death was a mistake, and he found a way to bring Maul back in Star Wars The Clone Wars. Next year, we're set to see Maul make his history on the first villain to star in his own show, Maul Shadow Lord, set after the events of Order 66. Marvel has announced a new prequel series to Maul Shadow Lord by Benjamin Percy and Modibek Masabekov. Sorry, I'm butchering these. Shadow of Maul will see Darth Maul attempt to reestablish his criminal syndicate in the wake of Order 66 as he plots his revenge on the Sith. Here's the official synopsis. Like Darth Maul being alive after Order 66, he was in Solo, so clearly he survived Order 66. He was in that Ahsoka end of Clone Wars, which was after Order 66, if memory serves. I'm trying to go through it in my head with all the timeline and stuff. And I know that George Lucas had a treatment in the sequel trilogy where Maul was the big bad. So definitely, according to George, Maul survived all of that. But I was pretty sure we saw Maul die on Mandalore. I'm going to have to rewatch it again because I thought he died then, but maybe not. As he plots his revenge on Sith, here's the official synopsis. Darth Maul, Shadow Lord, will reveal Maul's plan to rebuild his criminal syndicate on Janix, a planet untouched by the Empire. Star Wars Shadow of Maul introduces his new setting and cast, including Captain Brander Lawson and his partner, a droid nicknamed Two Boots, as investigate a shadowy dealing on Janix. Welcome to Janix, a neo-lit, shadow-soaked maze of a planet that lies beyond the reach of the Empire. Captain Brander Lawson is doing his best to navigate the law in a lawless territory. He's joined by his partner, a droid nicknamed Two Boots, as they face off against scheming crime bosses and as the looming threat of the Shadow Lord Maul nears. And you can sort of see I wish you could select these. Let me see something. I mean, it looks pretty cool. I like the black and white and red. That's pretty awesome. Oh, yeah, that dude's going to smash him. Looks great. Visually, it looks great. I love this type of comic book where it looks a little more stylized and gritty, Every time you go black and white, you sort of get that film noir vibe, in my opinion. And I really like that. I like that era of storytelling, and Maul in that center one just looks dope. He's so cool. All right. The Shadow of Maul is essentially set up for Star Wars' new TV show. Benjamin Percy is one of Marvel go-to writers, and he's no stranger to Sith Apprentice. He penned the recent Star Wars Darth Maul Black, White, and Red comic. My previous experience writing in a galaxy far, far away, Darth Maul Black, White, and Red, Boba Fett Black, White, and Red was an absolute delight, Percy noted. But these were one-shots, flirtations with the franchise. With Shadow of Maul, I'm able to share a more expansive story and one of my favorite characters, while also exploring a fresh angle on the Star Wars universe. According to Percy, this will be a crime story first and foremost. It's a story about cops, this is film noir to the T. Criminal syndicates and neo-lit, shadow-alleyed cities that hide many sins and secrets. I'm teaming up with an artist who's already a Star Wars veteran and legend, Modibek Masabekov. His art is gritty and grounded and perfectly matches the noir tone. Yep. We've been in close contact with Lucasfilm, reading scripts and watching episodes of the fantastic new animated series, and our story will serve as a prelude to what viewers will see play out on the screen. The 5-issue miniseries will launch on March 4th, a first indication of when the Maul Shadowlord series will come out too. It's reasonable to assume it will be a second half of the year after this prelude story is wrapped up. Until then, this is surely a must-read story for anyone wanting to know what to expect from Maul Shadowlord. Yeah, I am definitely down for this. I have always liked Maul as a character. I thought he was wildly interesting. I actually didn't mind his death because it showcased true consequences, and we knew that the prequel stories were about Anakin turning into Darth Vader, and so I didn't want to focus the whole series on a badass character like Maul. And then, of course, the Darth Plagueis novel really set up this whole idea about Darth Maul being a Sith assassin, not a Sith apprentice, even though in the films he's referenced as apprentice. And so you really do get this wonderful vibe of Maul's reimagining in every iteration, and especially with the Clone Wars, the way that Sam Witwer voiced him, I thought was just spectacular and visually arresting and intriguing. And then, of course, when we saw him show up in that cameo in Solo, it just got me super excited for a Solo 2 or a Criminal Underworld movie, which I still think needs to happen. So, I don't know. Do you guys like Maul? I mean, are you excited about Maul's sort of surviving Phantom Menace and the storyline that has come out of that? And then ultimately, how far into the future would you like Maul to go? Because again, like George Lucas's sequel trilogy that he sort of imagined after everything, after the Clone Wars, he wanted Maul to be the big bad in the sequels. Is that something that you would have found interesting? Let me know in the comments below. I would have loved to see it personally. Let's see. You haven't missed anything on Disney Plus recently? Good. You did enjoy... Okay, so you usually prefer sequels to prequels, but you'd be more than interested to see the rise of Darth Maul in live action than see Spider-Legs Maul. I liked Spider-Legs Maul. I thought he looked cool. But that's just me. All right, let me know what you guys think. Let's close this out with a look at the Star Wars news desk and see if there's anything new. Let's do this. 10 behind-the-scene facts about Star Wars The Force Awakens. In honor of the film's anniversary, we look back at giant puppets, horror movies, and monsters playing the same game of holochess for nearly 40 years. So what's interesting about this is The Force Awakens is 10 years old. Isn't that shocking? 10 years old? That seems like so long ago, but really it was just nothing. All right. In honor of the film's anniversary, we look back at giants. Okay, so as we mark the 10th anniversary of Star Wars The Force Awakens, which premiered in theaters December 18th, 2015, StarWars.com looks back at the film that launched the sequel trilogy. Did you know that the faithless soldiers of the First Order had a surprising connection to a certain British secret agent? We imagine FN007 likes his blue milk shaken, not stirred. Well, I guess that was 007. It's been 10 years since Star Wars The Force Awakens premiered, and we look back at what started the sequel trilogy. It's also fun to take a peek behind the curtain. One of the most secretive, anticipated, and equally exciting movies ever released, The Force Awakens was created with exceptional care, a fact that is evident in all the personal touches that went into the production. In honor of the film's 10th anniversary, we picked 10 of our favorite fun facts and hidden details to share with your friends and family during their new rewatch. And look, the setups in The Force Awakens, in my opinion, were gold. The fact that they were ignored drove me insane. And the novelization of The Force Awakens was even better. And it had further setup developments that the film presented, and connections that were just stunning. And I just remember being so excited about the sequel trilogy after having watched it. And the first thing we ever saw as far as like promo information was seeing BB-8 like going by and showing it as practical. And the fact that J.J. Abrams was taking a practical effects approach first to the story, and everyone was so thrilled by that. because everything, up until that point has been like CGI and just overuse of it, and people were kind of sick of it. And the fact that he went back to a more, especially with the prequels, everything was CGI. And so he went back to a more practical effects approach, and it just had so much promise and excitement. Everything was just hitting, on all cylinders, and then they just shit the bed. So let's see what this top 10 list is. 1. Save it for later. Several members of the art department began exploring concept artwork in 2013 during the very early pre-production phase. It was so early in the process that it was before the movie even had a finished script. Some initial but eventually discarded ideas were so strong that eventually appeared later in the saga, including an early suggestion from a production designer Rick Carter in this story could include a vision to the watery wreckage of the Death Star 2. That's pretty exciting. As concept artist Ryan Church recounted in The Art of Star Wars The Force Awakens by Phil Szostak, what if the Emperor's chamber had crash-landed after the second Death Star explosion? That doesn't make any sense, but that's when Rick knows he has something. Of course, we all know that this idea was beautifully resurfaced, so to speak, in 2019's Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Gotta hand it to him is number 2. The opening of The Force Awakens could have been very different, as revealed by J.J. Abrams in his director's commentary, which appeared in the Collector Edition 3D Blu-ray release of the film. At one point, the scene was supposed to chart the journey of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber from Bespin Duel in Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back all the way to Maz Kanata's castle. In the original script, you saw the lightsaber falling through space and landing on the ground and a hand taking it, said J.J. Abrams. Used to have this entire backstory where we learned what happened with Luke's lightsaber over the years and how it ended up finally in the hands of Maz Kanata. That would have been awesome. And look, that hand in the EU has a huge storyline later on, ending up with a clone of Luke. So, I mean, let's play with that. Let's have some fun with that. Number 3, Bucketheads. In order to fill out the gleaming white ranks of the First Order, production turned to several famous faces for hard-to-spot cameos under a helmet. Rogue One, a Star Wars story composer, Michael Giacchio, made an early appearance as a stormtrooper behind a captured Poe Dameron on Jakku. Nigel Godrich, the award-winning producer of Radiohead, was deemed by Abrams as a good stormtrooper for 0.4 seconds before getting shot later in the film. And of course, Daniel Craig, a Star Wars fan himself, has been filming the James Bond film Spectre in the shared Pinewood Studios lot and was brought in for a day to live out his Star Wars dreams. His stormtrooper was called FN-007 on set, now named FN-1824, the recipient of Rey's first Jedi mind trick. He shot all day and was fantastic in his voice too, remembered Abrams later in the director's commentary. There were other cameos beyond on the First Order as well. For genre fans, the Raid Redemption and the Raid 2 martial artists Iko Uwais and Yayan Ruhian played Razo Quinn Fee and Tasu Leech, 2 of the mercenaries who tracked down Han Solo. Of course, Simon Pegg, known to fans both in the Abrams-led Star Trek reboot as well as Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy of films that launched with Shaun of the Dead, donned heavy prosthetics as Unkar Plutt. I burn for the Force for Star Wars, Pegg boasted in between sweltering takes in the Abu Dhabi sun. 4. It takes a village. Determined to balance tangible practical effects with computer-generated visual effects, a couple of scene-stealing creatures required an army of talent to bring them to life. The lumbering Luga Beast, for example, featured the work of performers Derek Arnold and Tom Wilton inside the creature, with Kieran Shaw riding on top as the wily alien Tito, and BB-8 controlled by puppeteer Brian Herring. It is a seemingly simple scene, but that makes Daisy Ridley the only unmasked human on screen. When you then take into consideration all the concept artists and creating fabricators and designers and eventual visual effects wizards, this one scene becomes a microcosm of the magical movie-making experience. It's awesome. Similarly, the Hapabor co-star of a later scene with a very thirsty Finn took 5 different puppeteers inside. The beast's final design, however, was pitched to Abrams in a very unusual way, as concept artist Jake Lunt Davies remembers in The Art of Star Wars The Force Awakens. JJ did his first tour of our workshop and rounded it off by having this enormous thing charge out of a side door into the main warehouse. It was a risk. Fortunately, he loved it. The amount of effort for a single unforgettable moment is rather astonishing. What's in the name? Okay, look, Phasma had a great novel and prequel novel to her character, and I wish they would have done more with her. She had such a great storyline and such an interest. What's in a name? Boy, for the gleaming Captain Phasma's name, Abrams was directly inspired by a childhood horror favorite. Phasma's shiny chrome armor reminded him of Don Coscarelli's Phantasm, which featured a chrome ball, the lethal sentinel sphere, hence the name Phasma. Abrams' company Bad Robot also performed a 4K restoration of Coscarelli's 1979 classic. In the years since, storytellers have added to the lore, connecting Phasma's brushed armor to a certain Emperor Palpatine. As the story goes, the materials were salvaged from Palpatine's chromium-built yacht. And of course, we got all the puppets. Let the Wookiee win! Many fans quickly spotted the return of the Jajaric hollow chess aliens aboard the Millennium Falcon in The Force Awakens. Eagle-eyed fans, however, might have noticed something extra cool. The monsters on display picked up exactly where they were left off at the end of their 1977 debut. Legendary filmmaker Phil Tippett and animators from Tippett Studio used stop-motion techniques to directly counterattack R2-D2's move from the original film. It was a highly detailed work, with the Tippett Studio artisans using the original stop-motion puppets from A New Hope as reference, as well as photogrammetry, 3D printing, compositing, and silicone casting. Number 7, Happy Beeps, Poe Dameron lives. It's hard to believe now, but the character of Poe Dameron wasn't intended to go beyond The Force Awakens. The dashing Resistance pilot was originally slated to perish during the escape from the Star Destroyer near the beginning of the film. As Abrams said, originally when I thought of Poe, Larry Kasdan and I wrote the script and we just killed him. When I showed the script to Oscar Isaac, who I really wanted to be in the movie, he said he wanted to do it, but he had died in 4 other movies in the first act. Was there any way he could live? Thankfully, the answer was yes, and the rest is cinematic history. Nice little space band. He's not throwing away his shot. If you listen closely to the background sounds of Maz Kanata's castle, you may recognize a familiar voice. Composer John Williams has asked Abrams if the director could find something else to compose the diegetic music so that the composer could focus on the new themes for the movie. Abrams contacted Emmy, Grammy, and Tony winner Lin-Manuel Miranda to help write the newest Cantina-esque tune dubbed Jabba Flow. Both Miranda and Abrams also sing on the track, marketing the director's cameo. Same eyes and different people. Early in episode 7's development, Rick Carter and J.J. Abrams discovered that they both had a common mentor, award-winning and universally adored Palisades High School teacher Rose Gilbert. She had retired at the age of 94 in early 2013 and had passed away later that year. In tribute, concept artists Christian Alsman and Ian McCraig were tasked with creating Maz after a really inspiring, funny, glass-wearing, brilliant teacher, recounted Abrams. Oh, that's great. Number 10, Force Back to the Future. When Rey touches the lightsaber hilt hidden away in Maz Kanata's castle, she enters what the filmmakers referred to as a Force Back, a swirling sequence of images, sounds, and feelings. Much of the Force Back remains in the movie, including glimpses of the Knights of Ren and the remains of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Temple. But one moment was filmed and cut, the Bespin duel. Rey would have looked down the hall to see Luke and Darth Vader actually fight in the iconic scene from The Empire Strikes Back. During the very end of the Force Back, listen closely to hear the iconic voice of the original Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alec Guinness, saying, "Rey, how can that be?" According to Abrams, it was producer Brian Burke's idea. They found a vintage recording of Guinness saying "great" and isolated the sound. Then the prequel trilogy's Kenobi, Ewan McGregor, came in and recorded the rest of the line. "These are your first steps." Yeah, all of that was so great. And look, it was so much fun to get all the stories and everything when the film was first coming out and find all the little behind the scenes stuff. And I wish it would have gone in a better direction. The thought that went into Force Awakens dwarfs episode 8 and 9 combined. Those movies rushed among other issues. Yeah, which is so sad and frustrating. One of your biggest complaints with The Force Awakens was not reuniting Luke, Han, and Leia in the scene together, even if it was flashbacks. We waited 30 years to see that. Yeah, it was a huge misstep. Just terrible. BB-8 was great. Kylo was great. Rey was great. Snoke was interesting. A lot of potential. It was a promise that fell on flat ears in later iterations, but I really enjoyed it. And the whole idea of having a bigger, badder super weapon, that's very EU. So I didn't mind that at all. And I don't know. I just wanted more, you know. But what can you do? Did you guys remember enjoying The Force Awakens when you first watched it a decade ago? And if not, have you come around to have different feelings about it, good or bad? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. That is going to do it for this Star Wars News HoloNet episode. Thank you for tuning into the broadcast. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe so you'll catch the next episode, where we'll explore more of Star Wars news. You can also support this YouTube channel by becoming a member or Patreon patron. Links are in the description below. Thank you to creator patron Aaron Hardy, producer patron Azrael, and developer patron Chris Androu. Thank you for watching, and until next time, my fellow scruffy-looking Nerf Herders, may the Force be with you.